All right, guys, I believe we are live. This is my post Super Tuesdays thoughts, all wrapped up into a video. We got a lot to talk about. So, Bernie Sanders had a rough night, we'll put it that way. But I would like to caution against despair, and and against losing optimism, because that's exactly what they want us to do. That's really what Super Tuesday is. It's a narrative builder, and frankly, we lost that narrative battle, and this is going to be even more tough considering that we were already running against the wind while Joe Biden was being propped up by the fan of the establishment, media, and establishment Democrats. So don't get me wrong, this was not a good night, but also do not get me wrong, this is not over. We are down, I think, approximately 40, 45 delegates right now. So Bernie Sanders ends up winning. So Bernie Sanders ends up winning Vermont, of course, California, the biggest haul that we got, Utah, and Colorado. There were some surprises. Amy Klobuchar drops out, and Bernie takes second to Biden in Minnesota. Um, Elizabeth Warren stays in the race, and Biden somehow, we don't know where this came from, takes first. Warren takes third in her own state, and Biden takes second. Two victories that, in my mind, I had going in that we were going to take those states. And Maine is effectively a draw, although Biden did win it. So those were three states that we could have easily won. And I think the biggest loss of that was, in another state, was Texas. We lost Texas 34 to 30%, I believe. Um, Once again, a close race, but I was saying when the night first happened, I truly believe this might be the end of the campaign when we lost Texas. I was up the whole night until they called it for Biden, and I'll tell you why. Because, like I said, the delegate count is even. But initially, my initial thoughts were that this is more about narrative. And what Texas. Now, if Bernie. It kind of goes like this. If Bernie wins Texas, they don't get the narrative. Or if Bernie wins Massachusetts, Maine, and Minnesota, they don't get a narrative. So he has to do at least one of those, or at least win a couple, two of those states, or Texas by itself. So, Biden, the delegate share is going to come up with Biden just getting a little bit more. So delegate wise, it's not awful. But once again, this is about narrative because, like I said, the Bernie Sanders is running against the media machine. Um, Essentially, that the media will now run with that. Biden is so electable in the South, yada yada yada. Where did Bernie go wrong? Because people were hyping Bernie up to win it, but people forget that Texas is still Texas. It's a pipe dream to make it purple. Well, not a pipe dream, but it's a dream to make it purple. Who's gonna make it purple? Even though Bernie Sanders lost Texas, I think that he could still be the most effective candidate to make it purple. I think in a general he turns out more people than Biden, just based on his Latino support and his Latino ground game, which Biden seems to not have. But going on, Sanders gets crushed in Virginia and North Carolina, which should have been toss-up states, but it looks like that South Carolina bump mixed with the coalescing of the moderates really took a little chunk out of Bernie, to put it nicely. So that's that. He loses the southern states as expected. I mean, it is what it is if you lose those southern states. And if I'm being frank, I just don't care about those southern states because, granted, Bernie won a bunch of states that Democrats usually win, and the Democrats will usually win in a primary. But let's be honest, the Democrats aren't going to pick up any of these southern states. So in a general election, those results don't matter. But once again, this is about media narrative. This is about the primary they're in right now. So I want to get to a few things. How did this happen? How did Bernie Sanders, who I projected myself to win about 8 contests and all of that, how did this happen? I would like to point to 3 things. I'd like to point to Elizabeth Warren not dropping out, not coalescing around Bernie Sanders' progressive wing, the moderate wing coalescing around Biden, and the media spin post South Carolina. So those are the 3 things that I believe, well, actually 4, and Bernie's reluctance to hit Biden, allowing the media to get this narrative in South Carolina. So, it's time to be honest about Elizabeth Warren. I've been saying it. Other commentators have been saying it, that Elizabeth Warren is not a friend to the left. A friend to the left does not politic like this, does not do these actions. How? Granted, she is her own candidate, so she has no duty to drop out. But by her own words and by her own metrics, she has a duty to drop out. Because she says, I want broad structural change. This is about implementing stuff that we haven't seen done in a generation. She was basically the whole summer, when she started gaining in the primaries, or gaining in the polls in the summer, she was basically aping Sanders' policies. And she was essentially aping Sanders' policies and trying to pretend to be a one-to-one with him. She was posturing herself close to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders closed that lane because she decided to flake out on Medicare for All, because once again she shows her establishment trueness. So this happens, and she collapses, and then Bernie Sanders rightfully takes his mantle back. But the thing is, you were posturing yourself to be the progressive champion, and there's obviously the only viable progressive champion in the race. I'm sorry, but you literally took third in Iowa, fourth in New Hampshire, near your home state, took fourth or fifth in Nevada, and then took fourth in fourth in South Carolina. So at that point, and then you see all of the moderates coalesce around Biden. If you truly believed in big structural change, then you would have dropped out. Now, I will give one caveat. If she drops out now, before the 10th, the next set of primary states, there's plausible deniability that she wasn't working to kneecap Sanders. And what do I mean by plausible deniability? It's slim, because I don't believe it, and I believe that the plausible accountability of the actions is actually in the opposite direction. But it's plausible. That's the whole thing. It's plausible to say that she legitimately thought, internal polling, whatever, she had something. She was just in her mind thought that she could somehow do something, be the bridge candidate, gain a bunch of votes on Super Tuesday, win a few states. We all know she wasn't going to win this, but maybe, just maybe, she didn't understand that. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt for a second. Now we move on to the 10th. And now with Bloomberg dropping out post Super Tuesday and all this other stuff, and essentially it's Biden versus Bernie. And she hasn't dropped out. If she does not drop out by 310, there is no, I repeat, there is no plausible deniability for her actions. There's no justifying that. Anybody intellectually honest, just looking at the math, looking at the numbers, just look at every piece of data that you can. Elizabeth Warren lost her home state. She will not win a state. That's the thing. She cannot get the delegates, or she cannot be some brokered convention hero that she might be planning to be, which is lunacy anyway, because that'll fracture the party. But she can't be that brokered candidate, because she will literally have no delegates. Why are they going to give you this if you have no delegates? I am so upset. I cannot go on Twitter and look at things from Elizabeth Warren supporters still defending her. I accidentally opened a thread, and there was just people talking about I'm still with her, and sharing clips of she don't want her to drop out, or you can't push a woman out. I'm sorry. This is what is so annoying about the Elizabeth Warren voter, because there are these uppity liberal people, generally, or just generally women, or sometimes women, not that this is a women characteristic, but she has a lot of women supporters that are just for her, or a lot of supporters in general, they're just for her because she's a woman. Because yet they're talking about this bold structural change, talking about all these policy agendas. If you want to get anything close to her policy agendas, she's gonna get a position in the cabinet if she would learn how to if she would just not kneecap Sanders intentionally, have a super PAC running that then quits then she had a super PAC running that was running and then stopped funding after Super Tuesday. Why do you think that super PAC was doing that? This was not for Elizabeth Warren to win. This was explicitly to stop Bernie Sanders. Why? I'm so sick and tired of people putting their heads in the sand and with this optimism. It is just indicative of the left to be weak. The left cannot call out its own, and that's not entirely all of the left, but there's especially the Warren camp of the left cannot be called out, does not call out. It's an upper middle class liberal mindset, and it's the reason that Elizabeth Warren is losing, because she was playing to that demographic of just these policies that were legitimately, even on policy, she was just aping Sanders. Let's be honest about it. She was just echoing Sanders and doing it a little less than Sanders. She was the more cuddly version of Sanders. Yet these liberals believe that because she talks in a technocratic way, talks in a wonky way, gee willikers, guys, and all this, that she's the savior. No, she is not a leader. You can see this by the way that she talked about bringing dark money into her campaign, or accepting dark money in the primary and the general, having inconsistent logic there, bringing $10 million in ungrassroots funded money into her camp at the beginning, and then claiming to be grassroots funded, in avoiding saying that there's going to be middle class taxes, even though effectively there are middle class tax increases in her Medicare for All plan. That disingenuousness of that cost her the second to first place polling numbers. And it's just disingenuous. And why did she do this? So she could stand 1-to-1 to Sanders, try to up Sanders, lie to the American people about healthcare. The reason that he was winning on that was because of how genuine he was. People know that healthcare is not free. So please do not come out here with that. It's just, your plan sounds implausible to anybody who's paying attention. It comes down to the Native American thing. How are you allowed to say you are Native American for this long and then just get a pass on it? Why is it okay that she is just that it's so important to have a symbolic woman president who has lied about Native American heritage, who has disrespected a whole group of people and people of color in general? It's just aggravating. Yet they look the other way. It's like you bring up these criticisms and they pretend like they were 30 years ago. These were all in the past 5 years. Sanders wanted her to run and she didn't run. How is it right that he wanted her to run, she doesn't run, then he builds a movement for the policies that she would not dare to endorse in 2016 because of Hillary Clinton and the PAC she had? How is it that she is the progressive champion? No, leaders lead. Leaders go into uncomfortable battles like Bernie Sanders did. Bernie Sanders tried to get Elizabeth Warren to run, yet she's spiteful to him and remains in this race. She's a creature of the Democratic establishment, and that's just through and through. I'm sorry, if your head is still in the sand, I need you to just dig it out, please, because it's unbearable going on to spaces and having people either defend Elizabeth Warren or pretend as if there's still plausible deniability. There is the slightest chance, and if she gets out before 310, you can make that claim. I still think in general she was the creature of the Democratic Party, and she's trying to put herself in favor with both camps, progressives and moderates, and if she gets out before 310, she can position herself in that position. If she does not get out before 310, I never want to hear another word about Elizabeth Warren and what she has done. She has helped kneecap the best chance that we had to get real broad sectoral change, as she calls it. So time for Warren supporters to look at the data, look at what has been coming out, and look at the timing of what she's done with the sex attacks, and so on and so forth. But aside from Elizabeth Warren, the next biggest person at fault for this loss was Bernie Sanders himself. And it's because this man cannot find the will to attack these people that deserve righteous attacks and anger. These people deserve attacks from all fronts. And yet Bernie Sanders comes out and instead of going after Biden on his black record in the South Carolina debate, he knifes Nina Turner. He's running ads now, an ad where he's near Obama. He's running ads against Joe Biden, Social Security and Medicare cuts. I'm sorry, Bernie. You should have been doing that earlier. You need to have killer instinct. And it's the same thing. He never attacked Warren. Warren is a different instance because they at least in his mind had some type of pact, which in her mind obviously does not exist. She has no loyalty to that, and he should realize that none of these people are her friend. And that's what I want to say here is I never want to hear the words, these people are my friend Joe Biden. Me and Joe Biden are good friends, but I disagree about this. No, there's no couching. There's no pulling punches. We're out here, and it's time to call him the establishment creature that he is. Okay, now it's time to call him the establishment creature that he is. It's time that you learn to be aggressive. I know that is not in your nature, and it's not part of your frame of reality that you wanna move through politics in that way. But you must attack. You must be aggressive. You must be ruthless. We are in a knife fight, and you need to bring out the knives. Take the gloves off, put a knife in your hand, and it's time. It's time to stop playing around with these establishment goons. Did you see what they just did to you on Super Tuesday? And do you see what Elizabeth Warren is doing to you now? If Elizabeth Warren stays in past 310, you have to know that she was never your friend and never believed in the progressive policies that she echoed from you and then backed off later on as expected. Look at the evidence. I'm sorry, I'm going on another Warren rant. I can't. But it's Bernie's. This is just as much Bernie's fault for not attacking properly and not leveling these attacks the way they needed to be leveled. And for that, I am truly, truly disheartened with Bernie. So it kind of goes like this. You need to play like you're our last hope, because you are our last hope. I'm sorry. So the thing about Bernie is he's gotten in this mindset, and you'll hear him say it, and I just don't honestly agree with it, but I understand the politicking of it, and it really does help in a Democratic primary. But calling Donald Trump the worst president in modern history, I mean, come on. Reagan was worse than Trump, and so on and so forth. Bush was worse than Trump. The thing about Trump is the Republican Party might be the worst it's ever been, potentially. The Republican Party is the worst it's ever been. But Donald Trump is just another standard Republican, but is boisterous about the way he goes about business. But what you also understand is, and you say it in your speeches, is that the Democratic establishment is against you, and the Democratic establishment doesn't want to win. The Democratic establishment is in the pocket of billionaires. The Democratic establishment is complicit in the deaths of millions of people through opioid crises, through lack of insurance, through foreign policy, through criminal justice policy, through climate change policy, etc., etc., etc. And you know that, and you know very well that Joe Biden is one of the pinnacles of that. He's another hill in that valley of corruption, and you need to go at him like he is. I am sorry, Bernie. Trump is bad. Yes, Joe Biden is slightly better. But let's be honest, you put Joe Biden in, and you've said it in your rallies before, and then but Trump is a system. If you put Joe Biden in and he does not materially affect the working class, he has the rhetoric that the Democrats have been using and does not materially affect the working class, you will get a worse version of Trump in 2030. You will stop the movement and the momentum for the policy that you have been fighting for you will blunt that for the decade. So I need you to stop acting as if though you are afraid to kneecap Biden, because that's what this comes down to. Bernie Sanders is afraid to kneecap Biden. This is what it comes down to. Bernie Sanders has not been a ruthless in this primary for a couple reasons, because I don't know if he really believes that Donald Trump is that much worse and any other Republican, and yeah, having a Republican in office is terrible, but let's be honest. it's time to go out there and acknowledge that you're the only one that can beat him, because you saw what happened to Hillary in 2016. She lost to Trump, and Joe Biden is a less competent version of Hillary Clinton. He cannot even speak. At least Hillary Clinton was articulate. Biden cannot speak. Bernie, you need to get your head out of the sand and stop pretending as if though because you don't kneecap Biden, Trump won't. Trump is already destroying Biden on Twitter, and you need to double down on Biden right now. It is no more of this pulling your punches because you do not want to kneecap, but you do not want to hurt Biden in the general. I'm sorry. It's gloves off. We're going to war here. There's no more of these pulled punches. You need to attack him now. But do I think Sanders will do this? I really don't think he will. I don't know if he has the gall. I don't know if he has the moxie to go out there and say, and this is you're going to say the word revolution, then guess what? All revolutions came with a little bit of sacrifice. And today we're sacrificing Joe Biden. We are going to end him right now. That's how we're going to do it. We are not allowing him to just hobble on over. Think about this. They have been relentless, and that comes back to the other problem, the media narrative that was spun after South Carolina, the discounting of the millions of Latinos, the discounting of the people in Iowa and New Hampshire, the discounting of black people that do not live in the South, which is generally more moderate or conservative. That's that media spin and the Democratic establishment's coalescing and the way they've attacked you prior to South Carolina and for the entirety of this election cycle, that they don't care about kneecapping you at all. They've thrown everything they can at you, and you still are essentially tied in delegates right now. Yet they have thrown everything at you. That's a testament to this movement. I tell you that, but that's also an indication that these people are not afraid to hurt the chances of the Democratic nominee running. Why is it okay for them to kneecap you, but for you to never do the same to them? We need to play on equal footing. That's what I'm saying. This is a fight for the client. This is a fight for the planet. This is a fight for the youth. This is a fight for workers. This is a fight for people abroad, and so on and so forth. It's endless. And Joe Biden's policies. What are Joe Biden's policies? This dude still doesn't even believe in legalizing marijuana, the most basic of all. Like, if you're a Democratic nominee, you can at least get behind that. Like, that's like a minimum. Like, that should almost be disqualifying. Like that's just like a litmus test. Like, and it's like, call Joe Biden out on that stuff. Call Joe Biden out on the bankruptcy bill that does not allow kids to discharge debt and allows them and allows the wealth gap between blacks and whites to be 12-1 instead of 5-1 if you cancel that debt. This is asinine. The bankruptcy bill, the crime bill, the Social Security, the lying about civil rights, so on and so forth. Come for this man, and I need you to come for him hard. There is no Joe Biden is a friend. No. You know what you say? Joe Biden is a creature of the Democratic establishment, and he wants to stop me because I want to help people like you, and he is an avatar for people in power. He is nothing more than an opportunist, egotistical man that is willing to shit on the working class if it helps him get elected. This man has been historically on the wrong side of history. Iraq war vote and everything else that I have listed. Biden is one of the most conservative Democrats in the entire Congress. It's been ranked before. It's insane that Bernie Sanders is going to allow himself to not put the gloves off to this man. It is time. This man cannot even speak anymore. This man has dementia. Somebody come get him. Let me pull up this video. Let me pull up the video of Joe Biden, of a little compilation of Joe Biden speaking. It is absolutely remarkable at how just pathetic that the moderates are putting this man up as their champion. Here we go.
Why? You're getting nervous, man. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
I'm not sedentary. I get up and no, let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take the night pizza.
You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were. Make sure make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I'm beginning to see why your wife left you. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up. He said, you walk out with that chain. And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. Thank you very much.
So, Jonathan,
So, essentially, you can see that this man, on top of having no policies, is obviously suffering from cognitive decline. And this is who the moderates are going to put up. And you know what this tells us? That they're willing to lose to Donald Trump to stop Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders is the real existential threat. Like I said earlier in the video, Donald Trump is just another Republican, but is boisterous and annoying. He allows the Democratic Party structure to stay intact, which Bernie Sanders would completely alter the face of politics, and they do not want this to happen. So let's be honest about this. Biden winning states in the South doesn't matter because, I mean, it matters in the primary, but let's pretend like we're in the general. Bernie Sanders will win the Rust Belt based on his bona fides on trade, NAFTA, TPP, etc. Bernie Sanders will win the Rust Belt. Bernie Sanders has a chance to win Arizona, which people forget is a purple state, because of his Latino support. And I would have said stronger that Bernie Sanders has a chance of winning Texas. I don't think Bernie Sanders would win Texas this cycle, but I do believe in 2024, with Bernie's policy and his outreach to Latinos, that he could win Texas in 2024 if he were to run again. And so on and so forth. So I think Bernie Sanders has the best opportunity to win swing states that are needed to win the election overall. You will never hear this from the media narrative, though. You will never hear that Bernie Sanders won Michigan and Wisconsin handily and was projected to beat Trump back in 2016 and now in the Rust Belt and the Sun Belt. So Arizona, New Mexico, and others like it. So there's that. Now, here was something very interesting that I was hoping would happen, but doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Tulsi Gabbard, in the American Samoa election, because she's of that descent, or of the Pacific Islander tree, she wins a delegate. Mike Bloomberg wins American Samoa, but she wins a delegate. And so the requirement up to South Carolina is that you only need a delegate to be in the debates. But now, allegedly, they're going to up the debate standard so that she cannot be on the debate stage. But what Tulsi Gabbard would have done, because she's polling basically 0.5% of votes, so isn't actually kneecapping Bernie the way Elizabeth Warren is. Also, I'd want her to get the fuck out too. But Tulsi Gabbard is a savage. Tulsi Gabbard, not single-handedly, but was half of the reason that Kamala Harris's campaign floundered when she levied those bombs. I was hoping that Tulsi Gabbard would be on the debate stage and be the sword to Bernie Sanders. And that's the thing is, Bernie Sanders' ideology has got him this far, and his authenticity that it makes him so likable and stuff. But you have to understand that there's certain contexts that you have to change your strategy. You cannot just use the same strategy in every environment. It's like bringing a different type of Pokemon into a different thing. You cannot bring a flying type against rocks against onyxes every time. It's just not the way the world works. Sometimes you got to bring the fighting type, and Tulsi Gabbard is that. She could have been Bernie Sanders' sword. Well, Bernie Sanders sat there and absorbed blows with a shield. Tulsi Gabbard then, if she were to be on that debate stage, would then be throwing bombs. At least I would think so at the establishment, and because she's already put articles out attacking the establishment. So it's unfortunate that they've upped their ante on Tulsi Gabbard, because I was really excited that Tulsi was going to be on the debate stage, because I think she really would have benefited the movement and could have easily And if Warren was still on that stage, I would have loved to see Tulsi just crush Warren, because I've seen her vitriol for Warren in previous debates where the moderators wouldn't let them go at it and saved Elizabeth Warren when Tulsi Gabbard was going to eviscerate her and should about her lying about super PACs, etc., etc. So, like I said, we're running against the wind, and this all sounds kind of negative, but here's the positive side of all of this. We are in about a third of delegates. Yes, Super Tuesday is about narrative, but remember, narrative is not the only thing that matters, because reality is reality. There's 2/3 of delegates left, and Sanders can win many of these states. We need to organize, we need to donate, and we need to spread the word, and we need to keep our heads up. We cannot fall down. We cannot let people who know that we are Bernie supporters see us falter. We have to understand that this is the way that it was always going to be. I mean, what's kidding ourselves? Us sweeping Super Tuesday was us getting our hopes up, but I mean, the polling was supporting that. But realistically, this was always going to be a dogfight. We knew we were up against the establishment, and the fact that we won California, which we did not win in 2016, is monumental. It allowed us to keep the delegates close, and now that most of the South, a good portion of the South, I'd say most of the South has went, Biden is vulnerable. Bernie Sanders will win the West. If Bernie Sanders campaigns right, and if Elizabeth Warren gets out of the race, Bernie Sanders will win the Midwest. Bernie Sanders will win eastern states. Bernie Sanders will win states like West Virginia that are strong on trade. If Bernie Sanders takes the right strategy, takes the gloves off. But let's be honest, Joe Biden cannot speak. So the fact that he's going to be on the debate stage and not be able to hide from all these attacks and have people feel sorry for him, that's perfect. And now Bernie can go on the attack. And you know what? The natural feel, it's kind of like the Eagles, though. What the Eagles have been like since Carson Wentz was there, since Nick Foles. They're underdogs, and they play better in underdog pressure. So I think for a second there, Bernie Sanders got a little bit comfortable. He's not used to playing from down playing from up. He plays from down from the time he became mayor in Burlington to his Congress race to his Senate race. Bernie Sanders has always had uphill battles. Bernie Sanders was never supposed to win these elections, and guess what? Everybody who is fighting for Bernie Sanders knows, a lot of us know what it feels like to be an underdog. And you know what? Sometimes you got to go out there and you got to prove people wrong. And you do that through blood, sweat, tears, and work. And you do that, and you're able to put those things in because of the optimism. You have to have the mental fortitude to go out there and do what's right. So now's the time. So the hope. So we have hope. There's 2/3 of delegates left. Biden cannot speak. His record is atrocious. Sanders obviously is starting to flip the switch. He's sent out more negative ads. How negative he get is yet to be seen. But the switch is flipped. We are back in a natural underdog position. And I think Bernie Sanders. I think we're still gonna get this. I think we're still gonna take this. Take the plurality to the convention, and they will not steal it from us. I dare them to try to steal it from us, and we're gonna put that work in. And they can't run in that narrative of adding the moderates up anymore, actually. So that's another really good thing, is if we get to the convention, there will be no narrative about adding moderates up. It's time. It's time right now. So thank you guys for watching. Stay positive, organize, like, share, subscribe. Let's do this thing, all right? Let's do this thing.